Hello and welcome. This is Talon bringing you a beginner's guide, beginner's tutorial to Europa Universalis 4. Today we're running on 1.25 with all DLC enabled. If you don't have all the DLC, don't worry about that. Your game will be mostly the same in terms of core mechanics. Just have a fewer options, a fewer things to explore. It's actually simpler if you have fewer DLC, so don't worry about that. So let's say you just got this game and you're starting up brand new. What I hope to do here is give you an overview of what the user interface is like, and then help you get started with your own game. So, first time, brand new player, we're going to click single player. This is going to bring us into a world map where we can see every nation of the world. Over here we have different starting years. You can change the starting date, but there's no reason to do that right now. And we're going to pick a nation that we want to play. So my recommendation is that you start with Castille. Castille is strong for the region, has avenues to expand in terms of colonization, access to military expansion to the south, and if you're feeling very bold, to the north and to the east, as well as plenty of opportunity for strong allies, healthy trade, just a great nation to start out with. So we're going to go ahead and play our game. I like to play in Iron Man mode because it sort of adds to the sense of accomplishment, knowing that you roll with the punches. It also unlocks achievements. So we're going to go ahead and play there. We're going to name the game tutorial, and we're going to start. So 1444, what's going on with Castille? Anytime you start a new game, you're going to have a little bit of background on your country. What's going on? Who are you friends with? Who are you maybe not friends with? What do you hope to do? We're going to talk about your religion. You don't have to really worry all that much about what's going on in these tabs. It's just a brief overview. What type of government do you have? And what's going on in the larger political arena that you're playing in. We can go ahead and close this, read it at your leisure if you wish. So, here we are. Here's our country. What do we do? Time is stopped, and nothing's happening. The game really only driven when you drive it. Things will happen, but largely the fun is making choices and picking things to accomplish. So before we get into any of that, though, let's take a look at what all of these buttons do. As you notice, as I'm moving my mouse around the screen, the map is moving with it. You can also move the map with the keyboard keys. You can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. If you want to get real close, see what's going on in Toledo, say hey to your guys, that's cool too. But much of the map is going to be grayed out because we haven't discovered it yet. We've heard tale of this faraway land, but we don't actually know all that much about what's going on in those neighbors. Who are they talking to? Whatever. If you start the game over here, part of this map is going to be grayed out, right? It's a game about exploration, colonization, warfare, all sorts of great stuff. But anyway, we're going to focus back in on our country and figure out what the hell any of this stuff means. So for the first part, this is your map. Opens and closes the country view. Oh my god, more tabs. Let's close that, not worry about it just for now. Let's look at the permanent tabs. This is your map. It's glowing because we are a great power. What does that mean? Doesn't matter. Here we have our money. This is your treasury. The great thing about EU4 is that you have at a glance, and then you have tooltips. So at a glance, we know that we have 239 ducats. What's a ducat? It's a single unit of currency for the game of EU4. There's no other currencies. Everything is measured in sort of a universal one unit known as a ducat. So we have 239 ducats. Is that a lot? Is that a little? Well, to give you some sense, one military unit, say we wanted to create a military unit, that costs 10 ducats. So if my income, you can see, is 9 ducats a month, well, we have to wait a little bit more than 1 month to afford one unit at 9 ducats a month. So you'll get a sense the more you play the game of what a ducat is worth. There are countries where the entire income is going to be 1 ducat a month. Our country is relatively large, so having 9 ducats a month at the start of the game puts you in a relatively powerful position. We can see if we leave our mouse over here, that it'll give us a breakdown of not only what we have, but what's coming in, and then further where it's coming in from. So most of our money is coming from taxation and production and trade and gold. Actually, we're killing it in all sorts of ways. But then we have these costs. So we have our maintenance of our states, our armies, our fleets, and our forts. And once you balance those all out, we're still up ahead about nine ducats a month. Next over here we have our manpower. So our manpower is basically a pool from which you build new units and replace units that have died in battle. Is 1,400 a good number? Yeah, for the beginning of the game it's a great number. Our maximum is 27,000, so we're at about half of our total manpower. So we could build 14 more troops, or we could wait a while and this will continue to grow to the cap of 27,000. Similar thing over here for sailors. Sailors grow more slowly, and it's a smaller total number, but ships require, right, so a unit of infantry requires 1,000 manpower, whereas a unit of ships require between 50 and 200. So you don't need quite as many sailors. Stability is basically a number between -3 and 3 that tells you how stable your government is. And stability has all sorts of benefits that we can see if we go to the stability and expansion tab. So what does positive stability? We have this sliding scale here. Positive stability gives you benefits, whereas negative stability gives you malices to the running of your country. This is unrest and tax and corruption, institution spread, missionary strength, all sorts of sort of ancillary benefits to having your stability. We have it up here at a glance so that we know basically are things going well, moving in the right direction, are we happy, or have we made some bad decisions, have we made some reckless decisions, and are the people of our country kind of getting fed up with our rule. Next we have corruption. Corruption is similar to stability in that, over time, if you are making decisions that sort of strain your country will become more corrupt. Now you can combat corruption by paying money every month, but there is a maximum to how much you can just pay away your corruption. Corruption is a pretty advanced concept. I wouldn't worry too much about it. There's nothing that you can really do right away that's going to majorly affect either your stability or your corruption. And if you are going to make decisions that affect your stability or corruption, you'll be warned well in advance. Next is prestige. Prestige is a measure of sort of basically how cool you've been. Are you winning battles? Are you fulfilling missions and all sorts of things like that. Prestige, similar to stability, has a bunch of benefits. You see trade and morale and costs. You can also have negative prestige. This goes from -100 to 100. But again, unless you are doing something specifically that requires prestige, I wouldn't worry about it. Over the course of time, this will go up and go down, and you can keep an eye on it. But again, don't stress about it. This is your legitimacy. Similar to prestige, this is a scale of 0 to 100. I guess you can have negative legitimacy. It's really hard to do that, though. Basically saying how much do people believe in your monarch. If you're playing as Republic, you'll have Republican tradition. If you're playing as, Horde, you'll have Horde unity. But basically, this slot measures, like, within the government form that you're using, are you living up to the expectations of the people? Since we're a monarchy, the expectation of the people is that you are just a monarch who continues to live. We'll get into sort of decisions that you can make that can decrease this, but basically overall this is a series of benefits or malices based on how high this number is. Power projection. Power projection is funny in that this is basically a measure of how much you have done to foil your rivals. Now, rivals is a concept that kind of gives you a short-term mission within the game. And we'll get into that later in that we'll have some decisions to make around rivals. But power projection stems basically from, are you doing well, and have you gone to mess up your rival's day? Now we have these little guys over here. These are your merchants, your colonists, your diplomats, and your missionaries. And this is a quick way to know whether or not you have guys that could be doing stuff to help your country that aren't doing it. These tabs are somewhat helpful, but also redundant in that there are other ways to see this. But some people find it helpful just to know that they're there. Now we're going to drop down here. This is the name of our country, and then we get these three. This is the paper, the birds, and the swords. Now these are called your power points, right? So you have your administrative power, your diplomatic power, and your military power. People will talk about sort of paper mana, bird mana, sword mana, things like that. These are pools of points that you can spend that tick up over time based on a number of factors going on in your country that you can spend to do things. This is largely tied to technology and to technological advancement, but there are many, many ways to spend your power points. So as you mouse over, we can see that we're increasing by 3 here, and that our ruler has a base administrative skill of 1. But so everyone starts with 3. Then your ruler, their ability to rule, adds or subtracts. I'm going to say never subtracts, and then your focus can subtract. Over here, base of 3, our skill is at 1, and then our focus subtracts. Over here, we can see our base of 3, our skill is actually a 2, and our focus is adding 2. So this means that we are drawing from these two to pump up this one. We'll get to that later. Over here we have the age button. This is of these sort of indicators up here. This is the first thing that you can check or click, and this will give you if you open this up, this will give you the age that you're in. Right now at the beginning of the game, we're in the age of discovery. There are going to be 4 ages. And again, if you don't have this, don't worry about it. And if this is overwhelming, again, don't worry about it. Basically, nothing up here is something that you're going to be clicking or interacting with. This is mainly just to show you at a glance, how well is your country doing. This is a great way within the ages to sort of give yourself some short-term or long-term goals. As you can see, this is are these goals completed? And the more that you complete them, the more splendor points, that's this golden sun over here, are you gaining. You're getting 1 splendor every month anyway, so again, you don't necessarily need to worry about it. This game has infinite room to min-max, but you're not going to be messing up if you're not min-maxing your splendor points right from the get-go. But looking at this, we can see all right, discover America. That's something that we can do. 5 centers of trade, that might be a little bit more tricky. What is a center of trade? I don't know. Let's not worry about it. I do know because I have 1,800 hours in this game, but as a new player, if this is not clear to you, skip it, move it, don't worry about it. There are a bunch of other things you can do. Have a city of 30, right? This is something we can do. Renaissance, I don't know what they're what do you mean Renaissance? We'll see it in a minute. Hold 3 thrones. What is a personal union? We don't know. 2 continents. Okay, I'm on 1 continent. Does maybe extending into Africa count? Sure. Humiliate a rival. Okay, rivals, humiliation. These are things that we don't quite know about, but maybe we can get there. So, Age of Discovery, Splendor points. The whole point of this, you get these short-term goals. Once you get 800 Splendor, you can pick benefits for the age that for the duration of the age will benefit your country. So again, don't stress about it, but maybe in the back of your mind start thinking okay, are some of these things that we can do to start boosting the accrual of these splendor points. All right, so we've talked about this. We're gonna leave these glowing guys for a minute. we're going to go to this Great Powers button. This is basically a list of who in the world is strong. We can see we're just barely making it. Ming is kind of what is present-day China. We can't even see them, so we can't worry about them right yet. Mamelukes, that's going to be present-day Egypt. They're big and scary. Let's not worry about them. France, ooh, France, big and scary. England, big and scary. Ottomans, modern-day Turkey, big and scary. Timurids, over here, we don't know, we don't care. Lithuania, up here, big and scary. And then us, you know, we're pretty big and scary too. So there are certain benefits to being a great power, but there's nothing that you can do to be a great power other than have more land and be up with your technologies. So again, this is a quick way to sort of measure how am I doing, but nothing really you can do in the screen, so don't worry about it. Then we have this button, which brings out a million more tabs. We're not going to worry about those just quite yet. Those are, all of these tabs are less about giving you information and more about actions that you can take. So we're going to hold off on that until we're ready to start doing things. Now, jumping over here, we can see this entire time the game has been paused. Nothing has happened. The game only goes when we allow it to go, and we can choose the speed at which it goes. So seeing timeline, that's going to show you sort of rapidly kind of what's gone on in your game as a video without the units, so just sort of like how your borders are expanded or shrunk. The music, if your music isn't playing, you can have it play, but for the purpose of the video, we're going to leave it off. This is the date. All games, unless you picked a different start date, are going to start on the 11th of November, 1444. And these are your points. You gain points from doing well in the game. You can tell us that in terms of points, we're in 6th place. Again, this isn't really actionable. It's just to tell you overall, are you strong? Are you weak? Are you going in the right direction? These buttons increase or decrease the speed of the game. This can also be done on the keyboard with the plus and minus. This starts and stops the game in terms of the passage of time. Also can be done with the space bar. Now, we have achievements. Now, this is going to look very different in that I've completed many achievements. This is a good way to sort of have long-term goals for your game. You can say, what am I trying to accomplish with this game? Right? If you're sort of saying, how do I make this fun? What can I do to make this fun? Pick an achievement. Any achievement that is achievable in the current game that you're running will show up in this list, and then if you mouse over this bar, it'll say not only, you know, how far along are you doing, but if it's like, you know, conquer all the islands of the world. Well, that's an island. This will highlight with a purple outline every single island, and it says we own one of the 353. It also has a big red X over is man. We are not man. The Isle of Man is here. That's not us. So is this a good achievement to go for? Probably not. It would take a little finagling to become this country when you start as this country. So anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's focus on Castille, because this is the country we want to be, and we love this country. Anyway, so this is where you find your achievements, and this button will bring up your outliner, which you can add or subtract more or less information, but this is how I like it. And this is a really great way to also at a glance kind of see what's going on in your country. Now, jumping to the outliner, we can see we have our diplomats. All of them are free. That means that they are not doing anything at the moment. We can see our merchants are, it's where they are. So this is in Tunis, and it's pushing 0.23 ducats to Sevilla. This is in Safi, and it's pushing 0.6 ducats to Sevilla. So unless you really know what you're doing in trade, for the most part, at the beginning of the game, you're going to leave these guys where they are. Now, here we have our armies. We have If you click them, it'll bring you directly to it. We have our 11,000 stack, 11,000 men standing guarding Toledo, and then we have this guy up here, just hanging out, catching in some of that ocean breeze. Anyway, after that we have our navies. If you click, it'll bring us to our navies, and they are split. We have our 13. These are going to be our 13 over here. We have 5 over here. There's different types of ship. We'll get into that a little bit later. We're still going over the UI. Over here, this little guy, which you can turn on or off, tells you sort of important things that happen with nations that you have told the game that you care about. At the beginning of the game, there are going to be a lot of nations that are by default based on the region, have information popping up. Again, this is just more information. You can ignore it for the most part. And then we get down here. We'll just skip this for just a sec, because these two guys will be easy. At the beginning of the game, there's something called the Holy Roman Empire, which is sort of this region in Germany where a whole bunch of states have agreed to support a single empire while maintaining basically total autonomy, except that every once in a while this guy will at the start of the game, Austria is the emperor. He gets to interact with them in certain ways. But since we're not in the empire, we don't really need to worry about that at all for this game, or maybe not for this game, but for right now. They're just going to do their thing. As you can see, there's a bit of difference from where we are and where all that stuff's going to happen. Then there's the Pope. The Pope, the Holy See, for all Catholic nations, you get what is called papal influence every month based on your relationship with the Pope. Now, we don't have any cardinals. We don't really have that great a relationship with the Pope, so we're not going to really get that much papal influence. But once you have this stored up, you can either say, I would like to throw a Spanish contender into the ring to see if he can be Pope, or there are certain benefits, so you sort of purchase, for 10 years of benefit. But we're getting this really, really slowly, so again, the idea here is that there's room to min-max, but we're really not going to worry about that for the time being. All right, what else? We have, this is going to be your map view. Now there are a ton of different maps available to you in this game. And the utility of these is that they'll tell you at a glance a lot of information that you wouldn't otherwise have access to on a large scale, right? Let's take for example the trade good. If we use this map, we can see every good that's being produced. Now there isn't really any economy, like you need to produce wood and you need to produce iron to make gun, right? There's no economy in that sense in this game, but there is a value and a benefit associated with every trade good. So if we click on Toledo, we can see we make iron, and iron has a certain value and it reduces construction time. That's the benefit. If we click on Rose, it produces livestock, and it gives us a supply limit increase, and it has a lower price than iron, right? So again, this is something where it's like, I don't want to, if I have a mission where it's saying, control 10 regions with livestock, I don't want to have to click on every region. I can then go to the economic map mode and say, all right, 10 livestock regions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And very, very quickly, it makes my life easier. But if that's too much information, if that's intimidating, you can always go to the political map mode. And what that'll do is it'll show every country has more or less their own color. It'll show you where your borders are, and you'll be able to see your units. You'll be able to see castles, if it's your country, and opposing castles if you're at war. This is kind of your home base. You're going to spend most of your time in the political map mode. I've customized this toolbar with map modes that I go to often. Alright, so here we have our forts. This shows you everywhere there's a fort. This is important for fighting battles. You have your politics, you have your trade. Alright, it lets you know. Again, earlier we were talking about where our merchants are. We can see we got a little merchant guy down here, pushing money up to our trade node. This is where we're collecting trade. We earn money here. This is our primary trade node. And then we got our little merchant over here pushing money. You can see that little red check in the merchant means he's pushing money this way, which is the information that we had here. But it's a good way to at a glance see, like, okay, where's the money coming from? Where does it go? It gives you an idea, like, maybe I want to expand out that way and bolster strength here, or down this way, bolster strength here, so I can get more money out of trade this way. Also shows you, like, what are the important regions. So this is a very important region. As these little icons, it says it's an estuary and it's a coastal center of trade. So very, very good for having a large 36% of the trade power in this region. Again, these are things that it's good to know, but it's not going to affect really if you don't know this, if it doesn't make sense or it's too complicated, you just let it go. Here are your colonial borders. We don't have any colonists, so I'm not going to really mess around with colonialism just yet. Religion, we can see that we are part of the Catholic Empire. There's some orthodoxy still hanging out to the east. And then everything in green is going to be Sunni and Shia. That's the sort of Muslim world, and we are butting up right against it, even on the Iberian Peninsula. Look at that. How do you think someone in 1444 would feel about, Muslim nations bumping into the Catholic world here? So that's maybe something that we can look at. Then we have our diplomatic. Right now, we have really nothing to say about our diplomacy. We don't start with anything other than a truce with Granada. So we can't really worry about that too much. We have our regions. We are Iberia, the Mediterranean, right? Have unrest. We can see, are there people that are unhappy about things? For our states, everything is stated up except, what's this? Navarra belongs. And Labur? Oh my goodness. Maybe this is something we should look at. English occupation of part of our own state. Something to look at. England, what are you doing on the mainland? Anyway, loot, that only comes to play if you're at war. And you can see this toolbar. You can go crazy with it. These are just things that I like. If you right click, you can add more information to it. As you get more and more familiar with the game and you find yourself revisiting different map modes, just adding them in. So I also like to have the terrain in that, knowing where rivers are and in what, when you're fighting, there are pluses and minuses to fighting in different types of terrain. We'll worry about that much, much, much later. That's not something that you need to worry about right now. You have your political map mode. This one is so important that I never added anything to it. You have your trade, and then your institutions. Institutions won't spawn for minimum 6 years, so we don't have to worry about that yet. Colonial, and then your Holy Roman Empire. So you can see, when we were talking about the HRE earlier, we have Austria, and then everything in brown is an elector, everything in green is a prince, everything in blue is a, I believe, free city, yeah. So there are one province minors, OPMs, that have the special status within, and then everything that has this hash on it belongs to the empire, is land that once belonged to the empire that is hands of someone that has rejected the imperial authority. But we're not doing an HRE game, so largely we're going to keep this on the colonial mode. Religion and culture. So there are, you can see your culture. There are different cultural groups, and you get malices. You never get benefits, but you get malices if you own land that is not your cultural group. But at the start of the game, we own basically everything. Uh-oh. Galatian. You can see we're getting less tax, less manpower, less sailors because this is outside of our cultural group. All right, so at a glance we can say, all right, everything here is, that's religion, our culture. So these guys are cool, and these guys, they're okay. We'll talk about culture a little bit more in a minute, but diplomacy, it's a really handy one, so I leave it at that. Regions and areas. So regions are larger groups, areas are smaller groups. Unrest, and unrest is important, so I leave that one there. States, territories, loot, and coalitions. We are super far away from talking about coalitions, so again, don't worry about it. Then there are many, many, many more. If you're ever seeing a streamer use a different political map mode, or you say, hey, how do I find out what the trade value is in a region, or if loot or devastation, right? This is where you're going to find different map modes. But for the most part, we're going to leave it on political. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for kind of the general UI overview. We're going to make our next video where we come in and say, what do you actually do when you play this game? So thank you for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know, and I will do my best to address them either in the comments or in a later video. Great, thanks guys.